1.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. My name is Natalie Fanny Gonzalez. Welcome to the Economic Development Committee work session on the budget. And welcome to every single child who's here in the building, especially the ones in our audience. Today is Take Your Child to Work Day. And I think it's so great to have our children watching what we're doing here in Montgomery County, learning from this, and also giving us their feedback. We have a busy agenda, and we are going to start with the Alcohol Beverage Services. I'm going to have council staff to please kick us off. And as always, after he's done, we're going to have the panelists to present, and then we're going to open it up for committee members. Go ahead.
Sure. Well, good morning. Today, the first two items in this packet are covering the FY25 recommended operating budget for ABS, as well as 3 CIP projects, 2 of which are new for the first time in the CIP, and 1 of which is an amended project. As a reminder, the Council's authority to amend the ABS operating budget is limited. The Council can make recommendations, but ultimately the final decision to accept or reject those recommendations is on the County Executive. Having said that, the ABS operating budget, which we'll cover first, is increasing by 5.4% in FY25 versus FY24, about $3.8 million. Most of that increase is driven by compensation-related adjustments relating to either previously approved compensation from FY24 and prior, or for upcoming FY25 compensation agreements. As you can see on page 3, section B of the packet on the table, personnel costs are increasing by 8.5%. Operating costs are increasing by only 1.2%. And overall revenues, which are funding the ABS's operating budget, is only increasing by 0.16%. The general fund transfer for FY25 is decreasing by 3.7 million, or 12%, from 30.3 million in the current year to 26.6 million. Again, that's being driven by larger than proportionate increase in the personnel cost, which is crowding out the general fund transfer, as well as essentially stabilized revenues over the last several years. I have a bit of a more history on Circle 13, going back to FY21. My recommendation, given this is a non-tax supported fund, is to accept to accept all items that increases that the department has recommended. I'm also recommending that the department take a look at their personnel cost assumptions for FY25 and identify any potential savings there that can help increase the general fund transfer. I'll stop there, and we can go into that a little bit later. And then with respect to the 3 CIP projects, I am recommending approval as is, and we can go deeper if we need to. But I'll stop there for now.
Good morning. It's nice to see you all. Kathy Durbin, Alcohol Beverage Services, for the record. And I think we'll just start out talking about some of our stores and what we're doing and some of our plans. I'm going to ask my staff to fill in. We have a couple new staff members this year, and I think I'll go down the line here. Kevin Hutchinson's our new wholesale chief, and then we have Marty Udermal, who's been here. He's our chief of administration. Amy Saman is our chief of licensing, regulation, and education. And then we have Sean Peters, who is fairly new. He keeps coming back. We're happy. He's the new chief of retail. So I think probably to start telling our story a little bit, we'll talk a little bit about the stores. And do you want to open up, Marty, a little bit about where we're heading with the updates on the stores this year?
Right. Wheaton, White Oak, and I'm Marty Udermal. There you go. Wheaton, White Oak, and in Westwood. Westwood's a complete tear down. The landlord tore down the center, and it's underway. It's under construction right now. Wheaton, the landlord in Wheaton Mall is footing the bill for that So we're real close to it. And White Oak is a relocation.
So, I don't know what you. Oh. So you had some questions that were sent to us from council staff, and I didn't know if we wanted to get into some of those questions.
Well, we can. I have one question, and then if the committee wants, we can open it up, and I will read the package and have read the answers, but I'm sure folks have more questions. 12 of the 27 stores lost money in 2023. What's the strategy to turn this around?
I'll start. We're actually taking a deep dive into all of our stores this year. We have a new POS system. You might recall our older system was really past its time. So we can collect a lot of data now, and we can know who's coming in and shopping in our stores. But even more importantly, I want to take a deep dive into those community stores because they're very important for that community. It's not just about the money. It's about the local businesses coming in and buying wholesale products, and it's about, what the needs are for that community. So we're looking at, for instance, if we see a store that's selling a lot of tequila and the people that live in that community are coming in and buying a lot of, this is what they like. And tequila's hot right now. It's one of those products that has become a highly allocated product besides bourbon. So the trends have changed with tequila. So we want to know which stores are maybe selling certain products so that we can work harder to make sure we can provide them, and that could be our store that's meant for that. We're also defining some of our stores to help the businesses even further. There has been, I would say, not on purpose, we have seen some of the stores become the hub for the businesses. Well, we're going to be intentional about it now and really look at those stores within the communities that maybe aren't doing as well and use them as hubs as much as possible for the businesses to go to so that we know what product they want. Somebody can't afford a case of wine and it's on their wine list, they can then buy it by the bottle and we can hold it for them. Those kinds of things that we're doing kind of anecdotally, just kind of helping out businesses now, but we want to do it purposefully and work with the businesses. So we'll be using some of those smaller stores to help out. The community still needs those stores, so whatever we can do to reflect what the community needs. So we'll be taking deeper dives this week, this year. I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that, or Sean? No?
Additionally, we're going to be
Can you please introduce yourself first?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Sean Peters, Division Chief of Retail. Additionally, within these stores and their, a community base and trying to tailor selections to what those communities and stores need, we hope to capitalize on the point of sale analytics we can pull, as well as pilots in different programs. I know Wheaton is going to be one of our hopeful curbside pickup programs where we can start doing delivery and ordering online and making it more convenient for our guests and our community members to come into those stores and shop there at a higher volume, as well as looking at some better buying practices and pricing strategies to make sure that we are the retailer of choice, not the retailer of necessity because we are Montgomery County. We want people to be coming to our stores for that community feeling as well as for the pricing and the experience.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before I open it up, I have one more question, and I'm going to read part of it. And this is coming from some retail owners who have approached me with complaints, okay? So this one, it's about those special orders. When I say special orders, I mean those very exclusive items, very expensive items. And this is regarding the 4-tier pricing. And this is what I mean. What I'm hearing is that for special order items, restaurants and retailers often have to pay a higher price in Montgomery County than they do in the rest of the state of Maryland. This is because ABS buys them from distributors who apply their own markup. So there is now 4 layers of markup: the manufacturer, the distributor, ABS, and then the retail. For stock items, there is only 3 layers of markup: manufacturer, ABS, and the retail. What is ABS doing to address this problem? And I hear this very often. So if you can please turn on your mic.
Yeah, about 6 years ago, we had a whole bunch of flow racking in our warehouse. That allowed us to take 60% of that special volume and bring it into stock. So that alleviated a lot of problems. Going forward, if a business can sell just 100 cases a month, we can stock the item. Yeah. Yeah.
Is that like always 100 cases a month or a year?
A year. So,
Okay.
it's fairly because we do have the room to do that. So that's what we're doing. Now, sometimes these suppliers will have agreements with these distributors, and we've been able to talk and get them to kind of change their mind with that and go direct, because some stuff we want to go direct with them, we have the volume to do it, but because of these agreements, they're not. But we're breaking into those also. So we do work with especially when someone really wants a product, we will work with them to get it direct. Now, if it's coming from California, it may take a couple more days for it to get here, or maybe a couple more weeks to get here, but we can stock it and have it in there for them.
What about with a claim that you can buy the same product in another county within Maryland and it's cheaper than?
That's because the distributor is directly selling to that retail establishment, whereas they're giving it to us, and then we have to put our markup on it to sell it down.
But we're trying to
Alleviate, yeah.
So I will say that we're trying to, and we're being very successful in buying direct. So we will be just the 3 tiers. That's what we're trying to do. We've taken the last, I would say, 2 years of really building relationships with the manufacturers, and they want to do business with us. Sometimes they have to wait till some of their contracts have expired, but for the most part, we've been very successful. And so I think I would love to talk to those businesses, because we really spend a lot of time with the businesses to try to make it work for them. And so we're trying to alleviate all of that. Sometimes you can't, because if it's a very, very special item that nobody can find. But we'll talk a little bit about the highly allocated products as well. But we've become a national model on these highly allocated products, and the folks want to work with us from industry. So the tables have turned a little bit for us, and we're so happy about it. And so I think our businesses, for me personally, I grew up in the hospitality industry here in Montgomery County and ran several businesses and was executive director of the Montgomery County Restaurant Association back in the day. I feel very strongly that our very important customer is our license holder. So whatever we can do, we do to try to make it work for them.
Thank you. Do you want to start?
Sure.
Oh, you. Go ahead. Okay. Councilmember Glass.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Durbin, and to ABS for being here. The top line question I had was why the general transfer was lower, but that's been answered with regard to the personnel costs. So I want to dive a little deeper into the physical locations, which the chair alluded to a little bit. On Circle 14 in the packet, it has a list of all of the locations and their sales year to date, last fiscal year and year to date. And the store that leads all stores is the Montrose store, more than $1 million in net sales. And then number 2, with less than half of those sales, is Kensington with $426,000 in net sales. But the very last store has a loss of nearly $400,000, and that's the Gaithersburg store. And it all told, through the fiscal or year to date, by the end of March, there is only a $20,000 net sale among all stores, which does not speak to the purpose, right, of ABS, which is to provide the greatest funds to transfer over to the general fund. So can you share with us the strategy, which you briefly alluded to with the refreshes, and I know there's a schedule, but what are you learning from those refreshes? The Montrose has been, was that the first refresh that there was, or one of the first few?
First was Cabin John.
First was Cabin John. But what are we learning through those refreshes, and why are there a number of stores that that have net losses, and basically what are we going to do about that?
Yeah, we're Gaithersburg is something that we're working on. It's a beautiful store. It's a new store. We're very happy about it.
One catty corner from Quince Orchard, yeah?
No,
that's
this is
the
the
other
one near the fairgrounds. It backs up to the fairgrounds.
Oh, on 355, no.
And it's gorgeous, but Montrose was already there. It was a good store. People knew where it was. We upgraded that store and renovated it. Gaithersburg, you walk in it, you don't want to leave. It's beautiful. The experience, that's what we want people to feel when they walk in a store. It's a large store, and people don't know what it is. We're trying to get, it's marketing for us, and we're trying to get people to know what it is and where it is. There's no other store in that shopping center. It should be a hub. We do have plans for, and we finally, I think, are ready to implement it this summer, to start using these rooms. I don't know if you've been in any of the newer stores with the tasting rooms. So this room will be a space for us not just to only have tastings, which we've increased in all of our stores, but it will be a storytelling room. So it will be for the community and the businesses to learn about products, sustainability, where they're from, how they're made, what they do to help keep the earth green, or not, whatever story, but we'll be helping to guide that, and we're going to record them. And Gaithersburg is going to be one of those stores. When we do have highly allocated programs, we try to base it in Gaithersburg now, so people come out to that store. They just don't know where it is. We're also working on a program with Gaithersburg Fairgrounds for during the fair, so that we can, there's actually product at the fair, so the local manufacturers are there, so we're connecting with them as well. Sean's working on a project right now on that. Our stores also in Gaithersburg will be a leader in the store, within the stores for local. So the local manufacturers, when we first started selling some of these local products years ago, when we changed the laws to allow them to self-distribute, it was maybe $30,000 a year in sales, or, we're up close to $2 million now. So these are the programs that we're focusing on all of our stores. Some will be greater than others. Gaithersburg will be that hub. We also have 30 end caps in that store. So it will be an opportunity for us to be able to show people how to make certain different types of cocktails, and to, if they want to bring it home, how to do this at home, because some people don't know how to be a bartender. So there's just a lot. We're in the middle of a lot of programs. Gaithersburg is one of those places and spaces we can do this, because we need to. We need people to know it's there. And we're trying to balance it. It's public safety. It's a lot of things we don't want people to also hang out in the store for hours and taste products. So we're trying to make it a balance so that it's also safe for people.
Thank you for that. Clearly, whenever a new retail location is opened, it takes some education, aka marketing, right, to let people know that it's there and what's happening in there. But back to the refreshes in general, I'm curious what the sales increases, if there have been increases, have been. And let me back into it a different way. What stores have been refreshed so far?
Can you please turn on your mic? Turn on your mic, please.
Cap and John, of course Montrose, and but the new one is Gaithersburg. That's brand new. That's more than refresh. It's a brand new store. So it's those three.
So those three right now, right? How are they doing with regard to the sales between pre-refresh and post-refresh?
It's hard to say because of COVID and the numbers, but Montrose is way back up where it was, if not more. Cabin John is back where it was, not much more, but it is back where it was. So it didn't take long because they existed before, and people are just waiting for them to open back up.
I'm looking at the Cabin John numbers right now, and if I'm reading it right, year to date, by the end of March, so three quarters through the fiscal year or so, it's $18,000 in net sales. Is that about right? Am I reading the right numbers? Yeah. Okay. So clearly that's an improvement from the loss of $29,000 last fiscal year. So now it's at least profitable. The point of my question is to make sure that if we're making these investments, I've been told over the last number of years that these investments were needed to boost sales, to then provide greater revenue to the general fund.
Well, of course, that's what we want to do, but we also want to provide a service for that community. So sometimes the stores might not be a gangbuster store, but it's very important to that community, so we're trying to balance that. The Cabin John store has slowly That was another store where people didn't know what it was. It was so pretty. They were like, what is this? Even when they walked in, they didn't know it was a county store. And so now they're starting to go to that store more often. I think some of it's going to be a culture shift because we are experiencing the same thing for our businesses and for our community. And so I do think that, we don't have a marketing team. And so what we have to do is keep the word out. We have a communications team that's doing things on social media.
I see ads all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't consider that marketing?
Well, I'd say we don't have a marketing team, so we've always done our ad that comes out through social media. That's not a print ad. But we don't have a team. I'm saying we don't have a team that's on purpose. We don't market people's products. They market their own products. So we don't market Tito's, for instance.
Right.
I hate to call out
But you market sales. That's what I see.
Yeah, yeah. And so what we want to do is, find balance as well. And we sign leases. So if there is a store that has, clearly needs to be updated or upgraded, the Wheaton store is a perfect example. And our lease is not up yet, but we're still working on it. And we find a project that we can work on, and they'll do the work for us. We're going to try to take advantage of that. So we try to make the best decisions we can, and then back it up with getting people into those stores. The Cabin John store is also a beautiful store. As you know, you might know, the parking lots. Some of these parking lots are a little crazy. So trying to get people to know where they are next to Giant. And, we had a little problem in the beginning with kids hanging out, then we had to deal with that. But I think at this point, it's just going to be better and better. And that's one of those spaces with a room where we will be able to do the storytelling. Cabin John and Gaithersburg are the two main stores that will be doing that in.
Mr. Durbin, I appreciate that. And I'll just conclude by saying again that the refreshes in my mind, and as we've discussed over the last number of years, are a means to increase revenue. And as understood by many in the community, the purpose of ABS, aside from repaying bondholders, is to make sure that there's additional revenue to the tune of the rec department or library department as we make those large number comparisons of nearly $30 million or so. So anytime there is revenue that's diverted to other purposes that do not see a return in investment, in my opinion, that is denied investment in other areas in the county budget. And so that's why I'm asking these questions.
I understand, and we think it's very important. We also support 500 positions in the county, and, we support the liquor bonds, and, we support our communities. So it's a lot more than the money to us, but it's definitely about the transfer, and that's very important. So I hear you.
And I'll just close by, again, thanking you all and thanking the 500 employees who work extremely hard. I see them. I visit them probably more regularly than I should, but I do appreciate them. So thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And these employees are union employees, so very important to say. And then something that you mentioned when you said marketing, when I get my Washington Post every Sunday, I see this particular liquor store. I'm not going to mention one, but it's the owner lives in Montgomery County. He has plenty of them outside Moco. And the first thing you see is his big ad. We don't have that, and I can see your point, because they're very, very expensive. With that, Councilmember Balkan.
Thank you. I don't know if I'm on. It doesn't look like I am. But,
Isn't to the left?
yeah. Someone will tell me if I am or not. So thank you. Just to piggyback off of that, looking at Circle 13, and this is I think this is a conversation that is a longer conversation, not specifically to this year, but we do need to look at revenues are increasing, estimated to increase, or have increased 16%, whereas expenses have increased 5%. And I know that's primarily people, and I think that's important. But I think, what are we looking at 5 years from now? And have you done long-term projections on the look at revenue and expenses long-term and what that looks like?
So, as we're going through this refresher, we're at the beginning of it. It depends on what the numbers that we're seeing coming from these, this first round of them. The problem is apples and oranges with COVID. We just want to make sure that we're seeing a true number, and that'll dictate how much farther we go with these. Maybe the refreshes are going to be more of a facelift, to get it with with the new marketing scheme. So, there's still a lot for us to learn from that first round.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I think that it's just something that we need to think about, not for today, but I think that sometime in the next, before a year from now, we should have a much thorough conversation about just long-term projections of where we're going with both revenue and expenditures.
Absolutely. We're actually going to have a strategic planning meeting this summer. So we're going to be looking to the future and understanding a little bit more of where we've come from. I mean, from the beginning, when we talked about these refreshes and remodels, they were pretty high end. Everything was very expensive. Then we went through COVID and we couldn't get anything. So we know what we want it to feel like. We know what the customer appreciates and likes and wants. We get a better feel for that now. We might not need to do it at the cost that we were doing it before. So we are definitely flexible and looking into that because we just want it to feel and be an experience for our customers. And but we don't want the hanging signs anymore. There's a couple things that we know we don't want. And so these new store, as Marty says, it might be more of a facelift instead of a complete renovation.
Sure, I appreciate that. And then just the only other thing that I wanted to mention, there was a question about credit card fees. We had talked about that in the past, and I feel strongly that we can't put that on, that the credit card fee is a cost of doing business, and I wouldn't recommend any change on that. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Sells.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ms. Durbin, and everyone from ABS for the update. I was able to visit the Montrose store and the Gaithersburg store, and I can attest to how beautiful they are and how much more inclined I think you will be to spend a bit more to patron those stores. And so I think it was thoughtful, and hopefully we'll continue to see an increase in the revenue that's generated from those refreshes as more people are aware of them. And as the chair mentioned, the ads are great. They would be great, but they are costly. And so thinking about how we can work with, whether it's the county's Economic Development Corporation or our upcoming tourism panel that we're going to be talking about. Hopefully we can think of creative ways to look within Montgomery County to leverage those stores.
Yes, Visit Montgomery is a great partner. We partner with them on everything. MoCo Month is coming up, and we're on board. So.
Awesome. Very good to hear. That's already underway. I did want to get clarity on one of the tables. It's, Table 5 regarding personnel costs. I see that, I don't know if ABS is underspending or how the budgeting is being calculated, but it looks like we are losing how much money is being transferred into the general fund. It looks like every year it's less and less. And I'm looking at table, I think it's 15.
Councilmember, I can walk through the, the table and analysis if you'd like.
Oh, yes, please.
For everyone's
Thank
benefit.
you.
Okay.
All right.
So on page 8, section 1, table 5, as you referenced, this is staff's analysis looking at what was approved in the budget for personnel costs and what was actually spent in FY21, 22, and 23, and for 24, what is estimated to be spent. So in the first year in the table for FY21, the department actually spent $2 million more overspent on personnel costs, which is about 105% of the approved budget. In 22, 23, and 24, the department spent less than budgeted on personnel costs, 1.6 million, 1.4, and 1.3, or roughly 95 to 96% of their approved budget. What this is showing is that, and these savings and overspendings can happen for a multitude of reasons. Overspending may happen due to overtime, which in FY21, we're in the middle of COVID. There may be hazard pay as well in FY21. In underspending, it may be due to lapse savings, vacant positions that are not filled but budgeted, or turnover savings as well. And so what this analysis shows from staff's perspective is that there may be a potential to revisit this personnel cost budget for FY25, maybe revisit the lapse assumptions and see if there's any savings that can be made, and then perhaps those savings can be transferred to the general fund transfer. Okay. So, in Table 6, I've presented two options. Of course, the department needs to take a closer look, but essentially if we take the average over 4 years, that turns out to be a $648,000 savings in 25, potentially if you apply the same factors. And if you look at only the last 3 years where there's underspending, it's about $1.7 million in potential savings. Mm-hmm. And again, I think there is room to take a look at that and see if there's any possibility there. But I think the department will have to kind of do a deep dive.
If you wanted to explain or offer any context.
Well, we're just talking about the transfer. There was a windfall during COVID on the retail side. And the agreement that if we've made OMB as a partner is, okay, this is more of a business type of stuff. And, don't transfer any more than we make, or we run into problems in the long run. There was this windfall, and then the next year, the transfer amount was kind of based on that windfall. Well, they transferred $2 million more than we in 23, $2 million more than we actually made. So, and then that kind of flowed through, and it flowed through. Then we had the $1 million that was put on to the end of it. So that's kind of your $3 million, and that's where the difference is. Remember, it was just overinflated. The transfer was overinflated during those COVID years. Even though we were paying that hazard pay, we saved a lot. Stores were closed on Sunday. We had 1 8-hour shift, during the week. So we saved a lot of payroll then. I will say is that we always had a very large lapse. I think we've tightened that. So far this year through the first 3 months, we're 14.9%, 14.6% payroll increase. Now, some of that is the dollar increases in wages, but also the other is that we are getting fully staffed, which we didn't before, which we weren't before.
Yeah, which is helpful because I know that there's been concerns about
safety, everything. Yep.
Safety and getting products out to, businesses on time. So I certainly understand. And are we going to continue to go through the rest? Okay. So I'll hold my questions till we get through the rest of the packet. Oh, good. Oh, okay. All right. And then we talked about the highly allocated systems, so I won't go there. But the zero emissions fleet study, can you tell me a little bit more about why we're doing that when we already know that zero emission buses are going to save costs? Why aren't we just using that $200,000 to either put out the RFP or make the purchase? Okay.
It's not our study.
This is a study being led by DGS, by Fleet Management. We might be able to get more information on Tuesday's T&E session, but this is being spearheaded by them. And it's a one-time funding of $200,000 to look at the transition of the delivery truck fleet to zero emissions vehicles. So it is a one-time study. When that transition will occur, we don't know yet, but this study will help us get there.
Well, we will ask, the two of us will ask that question at
Okay.
TNE next week.
All right. Thank you for that, Mr. Chair. And then we talked about the credit card fees and, okay. All right, that's all. Thank you.
So essentially, we have three main questions. The one is approve all non-compensation and benefit adjustments related to budget increases as submitted by the executive and as outlined on Table 1. I'm okay with that. I wonder if everybody agrees. Lorian, you okay? Perfect. Second, the conversation that we just had again on the lapses, the recommendation from council staff. I took it as you're pushing back, that you don't think we should do it, or are you okay with taking the council staff recommendation, which it made sense to me, and I thought you did great, by the way.
The recommendation would be to ask ABS and executive to look at it.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
say no.
It's up to them. It's up to you. So you can at least consider that? Beautiful. Is that okay by everybody? Okay. And then approval of the CIP items. Is that okay by everyone? Yes. Do you have a question? Councilmember Balcom.
I do have a question, but it's not on that. I would suggest that we, the zero emissions fleet study, I understand the rationale of not putting it on the exempt list because it's tax supported, but I think in this case, we should consider it a new and enhanced program.
So as this is a non-tax supported fund, it is exempt from the council president's guidance. We can ask them the executive to not include that.
So I think that it's either we put it on that, I mean, there's asterisks all over the place.
Well, I would build upon that and say either it is a DGS project or it is an ABS project. And if it is ABS, it's wholly within your budget. If it's DGS,
Right.
then it is tax support.
Correct. It is ABS funded, but DGS managed. So that's the distinction.
How many asterisks?
That's
Councilmember Malcolm does
three.
that one. Half an asterisk? I don't know. Okay.
So because it's technically an ABS budget, we would have to go through the same process of asking the executive to amend it.
So can I make the
Hey, Gary Nalvin, Office of Management and Budget, just wanted to help clear some things up. So this is a study that is going to be conducted by DGS Fleet. DGS Fleet is an internal service fund. That means they don't get a direct appropriation from the council. They get funded by other departments' budgets. If this were put in DGS's budget, they would turn around and charge ABS for the project. So we believe it's simplest to just have it in ABS's budget.
Let's ask a different question. Did ABS request this study?
No, sir.
Okay. So it is wholly a DGS initiative.
If I could speak a little bit more to that,
Please.
and we can talk some more about this at the
We can defer some of this. Let's just,
I would say let's defer this to T&E. It just doesn't, Okay? Do you have a question? Councilmember Sells.
Yes, I just had a question about the, since we're talking about the renovations for these refurbished stores, the refreshes, is there a breakdown of costs that?
We don't have the breakdown yet, but we can certainly get that to you in advance of the full council.
Oh, okay, good, thank you.
With that, I would really just to follow up on Councilmember Balcom's request, which I agree with. You should be back to this committee to report on all these updates. I would say by either November, no later than the end of January when we're back, okay? Because we don't want to deal with this during the budget season, okay?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Always welcome you to come visit us as well and see our new updated warehouse. I think Evan was there recently.
Last year.
Beautiful. Well, with that, thank you so much for being here and for your time. And we're going to call the second panel. We are going to be discussing FY25 recommended operating budget. No, not this one. My computer froze. No. Kidding me. Let me open it again. I'm gonna do, fine, it just froze. We're gonna go the Conference and Visitors Bureau, NDA. And I see Mr. Ali here, if you can please kick us off, and then we move to our panelists. Thank you.
Is the mic on?
It doesn't show, is it?
Turn it. Right.
It's off. You gotta go like.
Got it. Okay. I think it's on. All right. Sorry. It's my first time in 7CHR. Good morning. This is the this is a discussion for the FY25 recommended budget for Visit Montgomery. We're glad to be joined by Ms. Groff and her team here. They have a recommended budget this year of $2.36 million, which includes the addition of a new FTE, an agritourism marketing and business development position, and the recommended 3% inflationary increase for all contractors and nonprofits. Visit Montgomery is the NDA to manage, or sort of our destination marketing organization. They market the county and support tourism-related activities here. And they have sort of a unique situation in that their revenues are a dedicated 7% of the hotel motel tax, which is deposited into the general fund, but they do by law receive 7% of that revenue, and that forms the basis of their budget. During COVID, as those revenues were depressed, the county did provide additional funding to keep the lights on, but those revenues have slowly recovered. I'll note that hotel motel tax revenue projections are unchanged from FY24 to FY25, and so the revenues recommended for Visit Montgomery are also unchanged, save for the inflationary adjustment. And so the county executive is actually using additional tax-supported revenue above and beyond the 7% to support this new agritourism position. That's the main ad, and that's the main consideration for the committee today. Agritourism is obviously an important part of the scope of work and work program for Visit Montgomery. It's a big part of what they've been doing. They've had some ongoing work on this topic supported by federal grants, and so they are continuing to make some progress. The committee may wish to hear what other work they're doing currently within their existing budget, maybe trying to understand, what benefit and value this recommended position would add, noting, of course, that recommending to approve the position will go on the new and enhanced programs list, and in part because it's an ongoing, expenditure above and beyond their dedicated revenue. Of course, the revenues could increase next year and potentially absorb it. That's just one of the unique quirks of Visit Montgomery's situation there. So with that in mind, I'll turn it back over to Visit Montgomery or the committee chair. But yeah, basically, council staff supports the same services budget plus inflation, recommends the committee consider what agritourism activities are currently being undertaken, and at this moment does not recommend using additional revenues for the new FTE that's recommended.
Thank you so much for staff. I'm going to start by saying, Ms. Calligraph, you have done such a wonderful job. I think I'm always impressed, and I'm always watching what you're doing. And it's a delight to always see your work. So please take your time to guide us on the work that you have been doing and what you're hoping to do in the upcoming year. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Member Andy Gonzalez, and it's great to see other council members here today. Good friends of tourism, thank you. I just have a couple opening comments. We love what we're doing. We love our community. Visitors bring money to our economy. They're very important to our economy and our small businesses. And the best part is we have 1 million residents who are the best word of mouth advertising. So the more they love their community, the more they tell their story and they bring economic development. Joining me today is our two senior staff members, Letitia Cobian-Ingle, who leads our marketing team, and Lee Calicut, who leads our sales business development team, and a great marketing economic development friend and board member, Cindy Rivard from Rockville Economic Development, has joined me. Good news, lodging, on Circle 5, you'll see some data about the lodging industry, which is much improved. Occupancy is crawling, so how we're making our money is rates are soaring. I'll also note that Airbnb is still very strong as a revenue source in our community. In particular, Silver Spring has a lot of listings of Airbnb hosts. We have subscribed to AirDNA, which is giving us more data on the activity of Airbnb hosts, and it's drilled down by communities. Youth and amateur sports continues to be strong for our community. The Maryland Soccerplex does a great job. Every weekend there are people here from out of town, and we have some incredible golf events coming up in our community, which is also in your packet today. One thing I want to thank the executive branch and the council for is the investment in our funding to be able to subscribe to research tools that help us better understand who our customer is. As you know, research is not cheap, but it's very valuable and very important to hone our marketing, and provides great data insights and tells us more about our customers, and helps us kind of prepare for our strategies in the future. Some of the challenges we still face are that the business traveler is a new traveler. The business traveler is not a typical Monday through Thursday traveler. We now have a business traveler who straddles the weekend, so the way we approach that is very different in trying to have people hybrid work in our community and spend the weekend. The other challenge for our sales team is just weeding through events and leads that come in for the meetings market and finding what is best suited for our destination. We turn away a lot of business because we don't have the space here, enough capacity for meetings. So we really have to be very strategic in what we bring to the county when it comes to the meeting space. Those are my opening comments, and you have in your packet kind of where we are year to date for fiscal year 24, and just a wide view of what we think we're going to be doing in FY25. We will be developing a full marketing plan, but it's usually not completed until June once the budget is approved.
Ms. Gross, before I open it up for council members to ask questions, can you please go over the need of having this new position on agritourism, why you think that's important, and go over that?
Sure. So our job is to market the county and look at what things we have in the county that will attract visitors here. And so our ag reserve has existed for many years. And the businesses within the ag reserve all market themselves independently. We see our role as being able to bring a message and a brand and an identity of what we offer for businesses that are open for consumers to come and enjoy, not just our residents, but regional residents and also residents from the Mid-Atlantic as our target market. And so we received a grant from the Economic Development Administration to look at that and help us develop an identity that we can market to bring more visitors here. And as a result of what comes from that in fiscal year 24 through 25, we see the need to have someone that could be assigned to just specifically help the businesses in that community. And that is why we have requested the position. There are a lot of small businesses in the Ag Reserve, but it also includes places outside of the Ag Reserve. So we call this a rural branding strategy because we want to include Sandy Spring, Brookville, and Olney.
Thank you so much for that. We're going to kick off with Councilmember Sales.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and always a pleasure to have you here to talk about how well we market this incredible county to encourage more tourism. And I was so pleased to see the agritourism position for marketing because I see the Ag Reserve and this becoming another wine country that people can enjoy. So looking forward to seeing what comes there. I wanted to see if you're finding or there are any recommendations for any programs that we should be investing more into outside of the business sector. Is there anything else we should be monitoring? Any findings based on?
As mentioned, having the research tools are very helpful. I think in looking at the future, we should also use these research tools to see what opportunities might exist in the international market now that that market segment is coming back to the DC region, and we are located right outside of DC. So it's a great question. But I would say the international market. But we are well suited now in funding to be able to have these research tools that will help us with that.
So I know that we have some restaurant weeks. Do we have an international restaurant week? We have 4 of the most diverse cities in the country. I think regardless of where you go in Montgomery County, you could probably eat from every culture and ethnicity in the world. And so it would be really exciting to showcase something like that here.
Great question. We actually have a restaurant week coming up in May. The whole month of May is called Go Moco Month. I believe there's some materials in your packet about that, and 1 week will be dedicated to restaurants. We are very proud of how we offer such a diversity in culinary here in Montgomery County, and we do tout that.
So we do tout the international cuisines that are available here.
Yes.
Okay, all right. And then I was just looking at the visitation and spending by zip code on page 16, and I see that North Bethesda is off the charts with revenue that it's generating, and it's a beautiful new community. Is there anything we can learn from their marketing efforts, or is it the mix of businesses? Can you tell us a bit more about that?
It's about the targeting of our ads into like the New Jersey, New York, Philadelphia market segment, and how they get here, maybe by Amtrak. So that would be their first stop, or they may be visiting DC, but they're staying in Bethesda. So you'll always see a little more higher visitation and higher spending.
And then, is that something that we can replicate in other parts of the county? Or is it just the location is what is bringing them there? Because I see more spending in Bethesda in some of the categories, so.
So data is very scary to me. Letitia is our marketing and data analytics team member that can bring more to the table, but I'll talk a little bit about Circle 16. This is a campaign we run with a group called Epsilon. So the results of the ads are shown on the slide of where people actually spend. So we serve an ad up to a person based on their internet habits and where they're traveling. And then that person clicks on our ad, comes to our website, and then Epsilon will follow them for up to 3 months and see where they're spending their money. So these zip codes from when the person is served the ad to when they actually come to the county shows what they're doing when they do come to Montgomery County. So our website divides our county by community. And so when they come on the website, they're looking for, it could be a family, it could just be, empty nesters, it could be a couple. And so they look at our website and base what they're going to do when they come to Montgomery County on their desires and their, what kind of free time activities they want to participate in the county. So it's a little confusing, a little hard to follow. There is a slide that does kind of walk through that. Letitia created a persona of a school teacher and how this Epsilon campaign walks them through from seeing our ad to coming to Montgomery County.
Okay. Oh, Robin.
And it's usually, it's typically a small ad, so you have to be quick and concise so that they will click on it and learn more about the county through our website.
No, that's good to know. Okay. And then I do see a dearth of activity in East County and Up County, and just wanted to know what sort of outreach and marketing you're doing there to encourage visitation. Any ideas or surprises on the horizon that we can speak to?
Up County is a very easy sell because of the Maryland Soccerplex, and Top Golf is there, and it also borders the agricultural reserve in the rural areas of the county. I would say the East County, without lodging, other than in the corridor of 29 in North Silver Spring, we really try and emphasize the restaurants in that part of Montgomery County and encourage people to stay in that corridor.
Are there other amenities that you would recommend us having there, or any other attractions that are in the pipeline to highlight or encourage visitation to that part of the county?
We're closely watching the development in that side of the county to see what opportunities might exist. We'd also like to revisit a discussion we had earlier about the sports industry and event space and how we might capitalize on that particularly maybe in that part of Montgomery County, as part of a strategic vision for all of us.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Councilmember, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for all the work that you do. I think we're blessed to have such a great partner with Visit Montgomery, and you do a great job of showcasing everything we do. And I also appreciate the many years of partnership with the business community, which you're always very present, and I appreciate that. Just a couple technical questions about, and I support the new position. I think it would be great and certainly necessary. Just the technical question of why it's external for the general fund. Is it just the fitting it in your budget, or how did that come about, and how would this position be different than your other positions?
Well, first, we try and balance personnel costs with marketing. We have to try and keep our personnel cost, even or equal to what we are able to spend. We're a marketing group, and we need to have the marketing dollars and not just bodies. But for this particular initiative, having a staff resource is really valuable and important, because they need to be in the community. They need to be the voice for that part of who we are as a community, and come back and advocate the rest of the staff within Visit Montgomery, the marketing team, the communications team, the business development team, on how to make sure that we are providing the coverage that they need to be able to have an identity and a voice. Mm-hmm. And more importantly, we want to provide an experience for the consumer that helps bring more visitors here in a sustainable way, but also keeping the people that are in business, continue to have consumers coming to their locations.
Okay. And then is this the first time that you've had a position outside of from a technical perspective, outside of the NDA?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Are you going to add in?
Yeah, I just want to add that at a moment in time when the council is concerned about the structural deficit, taking an organization that is relying on a revenue source outside the general fund and beginning general fund subsidies is concerning to staff. Having nothing to do with the merits of the appointment and certainly the great work they're doing, this is a very significant change in our mind, and which is why Bilal recommended that at this point you not use general fund dollars for this purpose.
Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Michelson. And then also the 3% inflationary adjustment coming out of the general fund as opposed to being inside the fund. What is the rationale for that? Same thing? Or
I don't know that I can answer that one, because it was through the executive branch as an inflationary adjustment similar to last year.
Ms., can OMB answer the question, please?
Well, the 3% inflationary increase is just something that has been recommended for all of our contractors. And so it's just kind of like a widespread thing that we have offered in the general fund. So you would see many of our partners have got that recommendation for the 3% inflationary increase for inflationary cost.
Sure. And
so not just Visit Montgomery.
And we're seeing it more and more in the various packets. My concern about it being in the general fund is that this is just then next year, if we have a increase, it just continues forever. And so I just don't. I understand the rationale of the 3% inflationary adjustment that we're looking at in total everywhere. I'm just concerned about where it fits here, because it's a never-ending cycle. Then when we look at the budget next year and we look at any inflationary,
Mr. Harmon. Sorry.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Balcom, for that question. We are in this year's budget. The county executive thinks the the hotel tax revenue is insufficient to provide these enhancements that we all agree need to occur. Conference and Visitors Bureau is an important partner. We want to make sure that the 3% increase occurs. We also agree with committee that, and council members, that agritourism is something we want to focus. We did not provide everything Conferences and Visitors Bureau wanted. We were able to work with them on how to provide those services through their existing contract. But for this one service, the $100,000 for agritourism and the 3% were priorities, and in order to do that, the general fund was the recommendation.
Okay, and we'll address the 3% inflationary overall. That's an overall discussion that we'll have, and then I support the position. I'm just concerned about where it sits, but that regardless of where it sits, it will be on the, I guess, not regardless of where it sits, where it's sitting now, it will be on the new and enhanced list.
Yes.
Right.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Beautiful. Councilmember Lass.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Groff and your team. I think you all do a great job of promoting the county and all the unique things that are here, from all the restaurants to the seasonal activities, and so I support everything that you're doing. Let me dive into some of the comments that colleagues have raised. I think the 25% of tract ad spending being in North Bethesda is fascinating. What have you all learned knowing that top line figure? How does it inform the work that you all do and disseminate throughout the community?
That's a great question, and we had an additional question from your staff yesterday that I can also address today.
I'll get to that in a sec.
Okay.
Thank you. I wanted you to be prepared.
Yes,
So, yeah.
I appreciate that, Councilmember. The idea is to reach the consumer and the leisure traveler and hook them into coming here for whatever they desire to want to do. So Bethesda is metro accessible, easy to take a train into DC and come out on the metro and stay in Bethesda. And Bethesda has a lot of restaurants, and a lot of this could be social business, right? Like weddings and bar mitzvahs. The same with Silver Spring. It's easily accessible. So those are easy hooks to get people here. Our job is when they're here that they have a great experience, they come back and they visit other areas of the county. And so, the urban centers are our hook, transportation, and then from there we try and just get them to come back.
Yeah, I mean, taking that one step further, if nearly a quarter of tract visitor ad dollars are spent in North Bethesda, it means North Bethesda is doing something right, and that our land use decisions to be able to foster an environment like Pike and Rose, the Pike District in general, what is planned to be on the property of the former mall, right, the White Flint Mall. We have the hard data to show that this is successful. Not only successful when my husband and I go and he says, I want to live here, right? That's a whole another level of success. But to know that all these people from around the region, country, world are going there and enjoying it too. So that will help inform us, I think, is one of the top lines there. With respect to the question my staff asked you to be prepared for yesterday, what is lacking in that chart on Circle 16 is the tourism dollars or the tract ad dollars for the agro-tourism area, for the ag reserve. And we have, you all promote, we all promote and visit the farmeries, breweries, and distilleries. But how can we aggregate that tourism information?
That's a great question. So Councilmember Glass is referencing Circle 16, which is the Epsilon ad campaign. So in drilling down in some more data, by our staff. About 23% of visitor spend are in the zip codes within the ag reserve. So anything below the 754,000 is not on this chart. So we aggregated the rest of the data for the zip codes in the ag reserve, and so the total is 23% of the spend from visitors goes into the zip codes within the ag reserve. It was a great question, and thank you for the heads up, but that is the data.
I'll say it was a great answer. So that a quarter of ad track dollars, tracked ad dollars, tourism dollars are in North Bethesda, direct correlation, without a doubt, to the land use decisions and the thriving community that is being built there. And nearly a quarter of the same tracking is for people who are visiting our breweries, distilleries, and wineries. Most of them, I presume, are day trippers or so forth, people from DC or the region going online saying, which brewery should we go to this weekend? Do you have any insight into that as well?
So our other data resource, which is Symphony, Tourism Economics Platform, tells us more about the visitor. This is through an ad campaign. Epsilon's through an ad campaign. Symphony tells us more about our total visitor coming. And so that's even more data that is extracted. And I will say from that data, we can also geofence points of interest. We're only a few months into subscription to that, so I would rather share some more of that later, but it's going to be very interesting in the geofencing process, what we find in additional data.
Excellent. Good. Again, really appreciate the response there and the team looking into it. I have just two more technical questions regarding the budget itself. It shows that there's a reduction in $69,000 for promotions and public relations, but an increase of $60,000 for advertising. Are those two tied? Just reclassification of that?
Trying to find my notes, but I know off the top of my head that there were some one-time projects within FY24, branding relaunch, website relaunch, and we hosted a Mid-Atlantic Travel Professional Association event that was a one-time event, so that is why we've reduced that line item.
Understood. There's a fine line between advertising and promotions and public relations, so I assume they were tied there. And then with regard to the creation of the new FTE, just want clarity that the funding in the first year is from that grant, but then that's the expectation is that it's built into the base budget moving forward? Is that correct?
No, it would actually be $100,000 from the general fund on top of their dedicated 7% revenue that they receive.
So then what is the grant that we're receiving, and is there an FTE being created for that?
No, the grant is an Economic Development Administration grant, not staff resources. It's a one-time grant, and it's to really do some focus group work in the agricultural reserve, talk to the businesses, and work with an agency to create an identity and a brand and a future vision.
Got it. So that's why I conflated those two, but the presumption, I'll presume that if the FTE comes on board, that will be the charge. Those two line items will be working together?
Correct.
Okay. I understand staff's concern about using general funds for this. Clearly, a quarter of folks are coming here with interest on this, so something's already working. If we can increase that, that's great. I'll support putting it on the list and up for consideration of colleagues. But I'll close by saying I'm very intrigued by the software that's being used, the analytics, not only the Symphony you said, but you quickly referenced the Air DNA. We've had a number of conversations over the last year regarding short-term rentals. This is the first I'm hearing that we have a subscription to dive deeper. I'd love to learn more about that. It would have been very helpful in the previous conversation over the last year regarding proposed legislation, but perhaps we can schedule a conversation in 6 months or so for some of these updates. Great, thank you.
I would be happy to do a demo with you all. It is more data than we need, but it is very interesting.
And we have had one-on-ones, and we are planning to have that session after you complete your report. Before I say something, Mr. Harmon, do you have?
Thank you so much, Chairman Gonzalez. And Councilmember Glass, really appreciate your comments about data and metrics. It's something that is very impressive about Conference and Visitors Bureau. It makes us comfortable in funding their needs, that they can show the benefits that their activity results in Montgomery County. And bringing people to visit, we feel has a connection to bringing people to live and bringing people to do business. So I really appreciate all the conversations with Kelly and her team about the nexus between conference and visiting with economic development. So with that, we can just tell Kelly she's done a great job, and we look forward to working with her.
That's great. We're going to have a follow-up session again. And at that point, some of us went to Loudoun County for an agritourism visit. It was fabulous. And the comms team from the county council created this video about the visit. We're going to show it when you come back, showing more detailed data. And I think that visit shows the power of economic development when it comes to of agriculture and agrotourism, the power of breweries and wineries that have had in our agri-reserve, bringing people together to experience agrotourism and come to love and learn about what we're doing in Montgomery County. As you all know, this county as a whole has made a commitment to preserve the agricultural reserve. It's a county-wide decision because the ag reserve is for all, and this is part of that effort. So we'll come back during the fall, and I get a sense from the committee that we do support. Oh, you have one more question? Okay, Councilmember Sells, before I call it.
Thank you, Madam Chair, because I remember agribusiness was in the county's Economic Development Corporation. So why isn't this an expense coming out of MCEDC versus the Office of Tourism?
Well, we're not taking anything out of MCDC on this respect. Agritourism is not something county executive believes that MCEDC should be doing. It more appropriately aligns with Conference and Visitors Bureau and our discussions with what are the core missions and responsibilities of MCEDC to be able to show the taxpayers of Montgomery County that there is a return on their investment. We can have further conversations, but we are not reducing money from MCDC to fund this.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Mr. Ali, you have something else to add?
Just one brief comment, and apologize for sort of the last minute raising this. I mean, it's in the staff packet, but obviously Visit Montgomery is a very full work plan. But if agritourism is a priority within it, it could be that that position is absorbed within their existing budget and something else would be funded with the additional $100,000 that goes on the new and enhanced programs list, if that's of interest to the committee. Haven't really talked in detail about that. Maybe something to consider, but I just wanted to throw that out there as an option if that's a priority.
Would you like to comment on this?
Absorbing the duties of what the draft job description is puts a lot of additional workload on a very small staff. Just so you know, representing the entire county, we have 2 business development reps. So we only have 2 people that are inside and outside of the community marketing Montgomery County as a destination for group tour meetings, conferences, conventions, and youth and amateur sports. So we can certainly move the needle forward with our existing staff, but it won't be at the capacity and the level of having additional resources, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much. I think we are ready to have one more question. Go ahead.
So I think if we move forward, one of the things that I would want to look at, if this moves forward through the full council, is that assuming that hotel revenues, receipts go up and hotel tax goes up, I would assume that this position would be absorbed within the budget and not forever be an addition, because I think that I understand that at this moment in time that the that the NDA can't absorb these details, but if your revenue grows, I wouldn't want then Visit Montgomery to add additional services and leave this position being funded by the general fund forever.
Understood. My only comment is that we always want to keep a good balance of personnel costs and marketing because we want to be able to have the marketing dollars to to complete our mission.
Understood, and I think everyone here will agree with those comments. With that, and I just want to, since it was mentioned, as you all know, we have a sports industry joint committee session with ECON and Education and Culture. We're creating a task force. There's just one more person that needs to give us a green light, and we'll move that forward. And one of the tasks that this task force will have is looking at a multi-use venue where we can have not just sports events, but also high school graduation events and other issues that I'm sure you'll find very interesting, and I know you're involved in this. So stay tuned on that one. With that, I feel that the committee is in agreement with the increased cost of 3% inflationary adjustment, plus the agritourism marketing and business development position. We're in agreement with that, and that goes to the list. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for your time, and we're gonna call our next panel, and that's the Business Center team alongside the Small Business Support Services. Thank you. Let me see. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And Mr. Ali, can you please kick us off?
Sure, thank you. So this is a joint item with the Business Center team, which is housed within the County Executive's Office, and the Small Business Support Services NDA, which is managed by the Business Center team, which is managed by Mr. Gene Smith, who's here today. The reason that this is a joint item is just that there were a lot of shifts in between the two budgets, and also actually including the Incubators NDA, which we heard about last week, and in Circle, or the first attachment, we show a crosswalk between all three budgets because they were shifting across all three. In this budget on net, and I'm just going to kind of peel the onion a little bit because there were quite a few changes. But basically on net, between these two budgets, there's a net increase of $647,589, which shows up as a net decrease of $343,758 to the Business Center team, and a net increase of about $991,000 to the Small Business Support Services NDA. And part of that's just sort of a technical administrative adjustment with the way funding is added to a budget and then moved to another budget, if that for whatever purpose. I'll just point out that I think some of the restructuring, which Mr. Smith can speak to, is just, again, mostly internal and administrative, but they can speak to their reasoning for it. As the table sort of show, Table 1 and Table 2 just show on net what was added, shifted out, and increased or decreased within each budget. And then Table 3 summarizes the two together so you can sort of see what's going on in between the two. And so on net, again, across both budgets, there is a net add of 2 business liaisons, so adding to their complement of existing business liaisons that support small businesses. There's this Innovation Alliance position, which is actually added to the Incubators NDA, which so it doesn't show up here on net. And then there's another program manager that's being added to the Business Center team, which would actually be within the Business Center team's budget. Whereas the 2 business liaisons, which would still be managed by the Business Center team, would be moved to the NDA budget. And so I think the idea is consolidating all small business support services within the NDA. The NDA also provides ongoing support for third-party contracts. That's what Table 4 shows. The overall funding has not changed. It's at $1.62 million, but some of the resource partners that receive it have shifted a little bit, and they can speak to that as well. So I just kind of want to go over again exactly what's changed and sort of explain that within their hierarchy. As you can see, the sort of list of all positions that are managed by the Business Center, the business liaisons provide support to businesses through customer focus and direct client management and do door-to-door outreach. They have 4 existing liaisons. 1 position was vacant, but it's being filled. And so they are recommending to add 2 more to essentially enhance that service. And then 1 new economic development program manager to help oversee other work and add capacity to the Business Center team. Basically, that is more or less the recommendations. The staff does recommend approval of the same services budget, but at the moment does not recommend approval of the 2 additional positions. If they were approved, they would be placed on the new and enhanced programs list,
Thank you so much for the summary. We're going to start with Mr. Harmon.
Thank you so much, Chair Fanny Gonzalez and members of the committee. Really appreciate an opportunity to come before you, talk about what county executive believes, and I hope you believe has been a great investment by Montgomery County into direct services to our small businesses. Gene can go into the details. We estimate almost 30,000 small businesses in Montgomery County, spread throughout the county, and our business liaisons, the ones we have currently deployed, are out not only responding to needs, requests, issues, but they're proactively visiting businesses to ask what are the pressures businesses are having to work through, how can the county help them succeed. So as you know, then this has been a long conversation between with the council, that the business center liaisons, the small business navigator positions are on the front lines. They work very closely with our regional service center directors and urban district managers. We have done we're working in the current fiscal year to integrate everyone on the same CRM system. So when a regional director is working with a business, it goes into the system, and a business navigator or a business liaison can all see who's working with whom and what the outcomes are. So that data-driven, Gene will go into the data, Mr. Smith will go into the data-driven approach that he has. With regards to the NDAs, the discussion this year has been how do we align the positions into the cost centers. This is very similar in other parts of the budget where you might have a climate NDA with functions in the Department of Environmental Protection, or even in the council's case, the communications NDA. Those are all council employees, but they're in an activity center so we can better align and track the cost. And in the current budget, the deployment of 2 additional business liaisons will help us, again, address the needs of those nearly 30,000 small businesses. And more specifically, the business liaisons today they're countywide, but they are spending a lot of time in the East County, Silver Spring, and Wheaton areas. The additional liaisons will enable us to do more intentional direct outreach in the Up-County Germantown area and in the Rockville to Friendship Heights corridor down in districts 4 and 1. And as I think was said earlier, the additional position to help us manage the CRM system is and Gene will go into this too, how do we best utilize the data that we're collecting there? How do we identify needs, mine the data for opportunities? But with that, I'll stop, and again, thank you for your past support of the Business Center and your favorable review today.
Thank you. Mr. Smith?
Sure. We did a quick presentation. Thank you to the committee for allowing us to be here. Again, our team is out every day working to ensure businesses can start and grow here. As we'll show later, we're especially working with our minority-owned businesses in this county. We work with many of those business owners. I'm going to go through 4 quick points that I think is important to our work. Mr. Hartman has already touched on many of them, so I'll try to be brief or briefer. So the first thing I want to note is just the direct assistance our team provides. We receive almost 1,300 calls, emails, or referrals from other organizations last year in 2023. You can see that was up significantly from 2022 with 450. And we're currently estimating, based on what we're receiving right now in 2024, to be 1,800. Much of this growth, I think, comes from just businesses realizing they get small successes from our team, and we're getting referred to that, or as well as both Ms. Clute, the Small Business Navigator, and Ms. Costello, the Special Projects Manager, work in 2022 to upgrade our website, and so it's much more convenient and easier for businesses. The reality is that some businesses come to us and they just need a simple, hey, how do I pay my tax bill? Those aren't direct assistances our team provides. Our team does come alongside the business liaisons, the Small Business Navigator do come alongside the businesses and walk them throughout that process. And so in 2023, we were able to directly assist more than 1,000 businesses. And as you can see on the slide, the rough breakdown, and we just hit the high ones, it doesn't add up to 100%, is that 40% were looking for help for funding. 23% needed help navigating the county government through permitting, licenses, and procurement, and then 10% wanted to start a new business. And I just want to highlight that 10% of our businesses, of our requests, are people looking to start a new business. And I think that's great. People want to start new businesses here, and our team is ready to be here and help. In 2024, using our current data, we're on track for about 350 at the end of March. And again, the breakdown is a little different, but it's similar. We had 32% requests to navigate county government. 17% want to start a new business, and 18% are looking to fund support. And of the businesses that provided their racial background, 75% of them are minority owned. They were Hispanic owned, they were Black owned, they were Asian American and Pacific Islander owned. Again, that's not 100% of all the businesses that come through, because not all of them provided us that data, but of the ones that did, 75%, which was closer to about 65% of the businesses we touched. I want to then move on. One last thing real quick. A shout out to Nadia Clute, or Ms. Clute, our Small Business Navigator. She is a legislative position. I mean, one of the things she does, not only provide direct assistance to our businesses, she also works closely with our business liaisons, which I'll get to in a moment, to oversee some of the ways that we can improve county government. One of the things she needs to do, as the legislation requires, is to be able to find efficiencies, identify those, and as she helps to work with the business liaisons and myself and other teams in the county government, she can identify those and make efficiencies and reduce some of the cuts that businesses feel without them ever knowing that they were there. And I think that's great work. We can go to the next slide. So Mr. Hartman mentioned this, but our team of business liaisons are out in the community every week. I'm joined today by Ms. Harvey, who's our most recent, there she is, business liaison. She joined middle of last year, and she's out in East County. And then our other two liaisons, Ms. Chapman and Mr. Croma, are currently at the procurement fair, working to help businesses get through those processes and meeting them. So they, and then as noted by council staff, we have hired a new business liaison, and he will be on board come May 20th. And so we will have 4 business liaisons, and I'm particularly excited to know that the new business liaison coming on board is bilingual and will provide support in Spanish and English. And that is one of the things that our team wants to make sure we do, is increasing the ability to be multilingual so that we can meet our businesses in the community. So for 2023, as we noted in the annual report, we had more than 800 face-to-face contacts. I think this is really critical, and one of the things that the county executive, Mr. Weissman, before Mr. Hartman, emphasized, and now Mr. Hartman does as our manager, or one of our managers, is that businesses don't have time to come to the county sometimes. They don't have time to find us in workshops. They don't have time. The business liaisons are in the community to meet those businesses, to be able to hear their needs, sometimes to hear that we can just stay out of the way. But a lot of times, some of our direct assistance comes from those, and we're able to address challenges before they become hard issues for those businesses. And to date, right now, by end of March, we've done already 300 face-to-face connections. And another great thing is, as we note, is our business liaisons, although are focus in regional areas, they can be deployed throughout the county. And so we do that in coordination with our regional partners and for other needs. And so one example is Ms. Cardona in Mid-County asked for help for the Taste of Wheaton, and we were able to deploy our liaisons there for a week or two to promote the Taste of Wheaton, to be able to do some other interactions and connections with businesses. We're getting ready to work with the planning department out in Germantown for their updated area study. And so I think that's one of the things that business brings to the table, is to be able to deploy kind of a strike force of liaisons to go out there and do these projects, in addition just to the weekly work they do for face-to-face interactions. As noted by Mr. Hartman, there's 27,000 according to BLS establishments that are service-oriented restaurants or retail in this county. And currently, that would be divided by 4 is about 7,000 businesses for each business liaison. And so the executive, just like last year, is recommending 2 more business liaisons, and I think this will give us an opportunity as we grow the liaison team to focus in areas up in Up County as well as along the Rockville corridor. We can go to the next slide. So I'll be quick on the last 2 points. We wanted to highlight our increased programming this year, and I'll use the word programming more specifically to mean workshops, sessions, not just programs, the areas that we think of in the budget. These programs are needed, and Ms. Klude has been working on many of these to be able to fill in gaps that we have currently in our communications with the businesses. And I think this is just a natural step as our team has grown. And so she's working with our county departments to be able to highlight opportunities, processes, ways to do work with the county, as well as get through county processes and state processes. Most critically, she's making sure that, at least right now, that these workshops are being offered both in English and Spanish. We find that many of our business owners coming to the county want to prefer Spanish speaking or prefer to speak in Spanish, and having workshops that are in their language is a great boon. We're hoping in the next couple of years to increase to other languages, especially Amharic, French, and Chinese, given some of those are our top languages spoken by our business owners in the county. And then I also want to highlight one of our team members who's not here right now, but does great work each day. Ms. Sawyer is our contract manager, and as noted on the next slide, we do, and by the council staff packet, we have almost $1.6 million that's for direct services to our providers. The reality is the county cannot provide all services, should not provide all services, and these partners help us augment the ways the county can assist businesses, sometimes to provide cultural relevancy and programs in cultural relevant ways, and other times to provide technical assistance that I don't need to hire business liaisons, to also be coaches that can get businesses to do a business plan. We have plenty of partners that are able to do that through the Maryland Women's Business Center, the Maryland Small Business Development Center, and Ms. Sawyer helps us oversee many of our contract management on the team, and provides that opportunity so that we can make sure those resources are deployed. And then quickly, we'll stop on the last note that Mr. Hartman mentioned, which was the client relationship management system. We've gone ahead and moved forward to implement that. It was done through an RFP and through a competitive selection process for the next 3 years. We'll be using that system and hopefully continue as long as we're happy with it. And as Mr. Hartman said, we are working, the regional service areas are all on board with us because those are the 2 places, at least in the Office of the County Executive and the Community Engagement Cluster, that we wanted to start with. And it provides a much better picture of our business community and as well as the work that the county is providing. But one of the critical pieces is our team is already maxed out and doing a lot of the other work. And one of the FTEs that the executive has recommended is to be able to provide significant support to just managing this database. The reality is, amongst the 25 staff that are currently in the system, and I'll also note that the Office of Agriculture has heard about it, is interested, and we're more than happy, the more the merrier. But the reality is we need support to curate that, to make sure that the data that's going in is accurate, maintained correctly, and then, as Mr. Hartman mentioned, to be able to do some data analytics. And so one of the positions recommended in the Business Center for next year is to provide that support, as well as other support around the whole team, given the current capacity. So with that, we're grateful. Thank you for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions, and we certainly look forward to answering. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the detailed presentation. I'm sure we'll have your questions. But before I open it up, and we're going to start with Councilmember Glass, I just want to give a shout out to your team. Throughout this year, I have had quite a few situations with businesses in my district, and you guys have been so great to work with. I'm just going to mention 2 examples. One of them, last year when the council was seeing the bill about the nightlife safety plan, I organized a meeting with restaurants in the Wheaton, Lemont, Aspen Hill area, and I did one in Spanish and another one in English. And the one in Spanish, I found out that some folks have no idea how to pay their business taxes. Not because they wanted to avoid paying the taxes. They have no idea of how to do it. And to me, that was a little shocking. So I quickly, contacted Nadia and the Montgomery County Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and we contacted an accountant that you guys had connected with, and we offer a workshop for free to these folks. We want to make sure that our businesses are in compliance and that they are successful. So that's one example, and many others that have come up, even with businesses that have been here for a long time and who have had issues with the landlord. So thank you for all that work, and I think that experience that I've had throughout the year has helped me understand the need even more compared to this budget discussion that we had last year, because we didn't give you everything last year. But I can see the work that you guys have put together and the awesome work that you, Mr. Smith, have done with your team. So I really want to congratulate you because you deserve that. And I'm in full support of those positions, by the way. I just want to get it out of the way. And we're going to start with Councilmember Glass. There you go.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Hartman, Mr. Smith, thank you. And I, too, want to extend my appreciation, Mr. Smith, to your team. My office regularly refers people to you and your colleagues. And I know the constituents and the business owners very much appreciate that. And I want to dive into that work just a little bit more. Based on the slides, and I'm not sure what slide it was, but I took a picture. You said that in 2024, about 350 businesses were assisted. Yes, there we go. So it's that lower third. 32% needed help navigating county processes, 17% needed help starting up a new business, and 18% needed funding support. What happened next?
Well, the daily life of our business liaisons are to pick up and immediately either respond. If it comes in email, the business owner or the constituent leaves their phone number and their email, and so it's left on the business liaison to respond within 2 business days. I would say based on our data, they respond within the same day that we get it, unless it comes in near the end of the business day, like 5 o'clock, then it's the next morning. And to reach out and let them know that they are the county staff available to them to help them through the process and to learn a little bit more. I will say that we've made it easy for businesses to get in touch with us, so the details are usually missing. It's usually license help. Okay. And so the next step is for the business liaisons to either meet with on the phone or meet in person, or if the business owner just wants to communicate by email, but to dig in a little bit, hear what they need. They'll say a lot of times once they dig in, like Ms. Fanning Gonzalez, or Councilmember Fanning Gonzalez said, we find out they have 4 other questions they didn't put down on their list. And so they basically what then the business liaison does is to walk with them through that process. So if it's just one question and they need to say, let's go to the permitting services, my permit's just not getting done, we'll reach out to permitting services, figure out where the disconnect is, connect them with the right staff, make sure we're with them, so if there's another follow-up coming after that, they're not just left with DPS and then say, where do I go? And then hopefully we have a lot of wins, and we usually do when we're all resolved and the business goes about their business to do what they need to do, and then our business liaisons move on to another business. But that is the life of a client management process for us.
Thank you for walking us through the life of your hardworking team. I assume that the CRM is going to help facilitate the tracking of that process?
1,000%. So.
And at $15,000, if I'm reading that correctly, it's just $15,000, not $1.5 million, depending on where zeros are or aren't, right?
Correct.
It's just $15,000. Okay.
100. Yes.
Mr. Ali, you didn't do anything wrong. I saw you were worried.
In defense
a
of
good
Mr.
panic. I was asking a question though, so you're okay. And at $15,000, that is I would assume a very simple system for people to navigate and manage. Yeah. Good. What I would love moving forward, share with us some of those stories beyond the glossy handout that is included in the packet and that we see in some of the communities and some of the businesses as well, because one of the issues that we all deal with, and you know very well, is we will reach out to DPS and try and facilitate requests and needs, and we know that it is sometimes very hard for us, which does not mean it's not hard for you and your team, even if everybody is housed in the executive branch. And so to let us know if you see things that need legislative fixes, I know you're not shy in sending over legislation or regulatory changes, but beyond the top lines, I want to hear about those small businesses that are working well, because the reality is that is, in my opinion, the only way that funding will continue to grow when we see those successes. And so I know I'll support these items because I know how responsive you all have been to me and my team. I just need to know that the rest of the executive agency is being responsive to you and the small businesses.
Glad to do that.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Great story from yesterday, Gap Busters. Remember that? I was in their opening yesterday with the council president. Perfect example of somebody who was truly needed help to find a space, and I contacted your office, and boom, it took a few months, but it was a success story that we need to talk more about it. So, great request. With that, Councilmember Balkan.
Thank you. And of course, I'm a fan of the Business Center and all the work that you do, and I appreciate it. We send people there to you all the time, and you can. I was going to say you could join our staff, but you already did, and and went across the street. So I appreciate that. So just two issues, different issues. One is I support the request. But can you just walk through the strategy of moving it into the NDA? And the reason I ask is because it's, for me, there's a clear delineation. The small business support services are external partners providing services. And I think that, to me, it would be more confusing, not less confusing, to have county staff in this NDA. So your thoughts?
Sure. So the recommendation, and we respect the fact that, I'll use an example that I read in the New York Times recently about checking accounts. Bear with me for a second. They're using AI to track how people are using their checking accounts, and so I respect the fact that when things look different from a budget, it calls attention to it. I think as the team has grown, I joined in November of 2022, and the fiscal 24 budget was already more or less out the door on the county executive side. And as I spent time with the team this year, having everything under one small program area in the larger Office of the County Executive Budget makes it really hard to identify what those functions are for our team. Because, and I regretfully forgot to mention Mr. Bicola, who helps do a lot of our program management on the economic development side for MOVE program, the conference center. He spoke last week at the EDF. The reality is we have a lot of staff doing different functions, and the reality is we don't have a way to point to how we're doing those functions just within the county Office of the County Executive's budget. So the intent was to put a very clear delineation of here's the small business support services that the county is doing, and similar to like we do with the incubator NDA, which has staff in it, and the conference center NDA that has staff in it. The recommendation was put the business liaisons in the small business support services NDA to put a clear marker that those are the county staff working on that very well thing.
Mm-hmm. But wouldn't all your staff be doing small business support? So what is the delineation between those individuals versus everybody?
Well, the remainder of the team is mostly administrative, except for the small business navigator, which is legislated under the Office of the County Executive. So that was, but correct, we're always doing small business support services. Again, the business liaisons, I think, are the face of that for the team for the most part in the county, outside of the staff that are in the incubators. And so again, it was purely to be able to help identify the staff that are primarily doing that on our team, so that when someone asks, where's the budget for small business support services, we can point to that and show what the county is doing.
Okay. Thank you. And I think that so this is back of the house discussion. I think it's just really important that whatever is external is one thing, the Business Resource Center, and that there's no delineation externally for this. I think that's important. And then I think the more substantive question is on page 6, and that is the small business, the partners. We had a lengthy discussion last year about the size of the allocation to the Black Collective, and the response back a year ago was that they weren't spending nearly this amount. It's a reimbursement or some grant or a reimbursement contract.
Correct. All of these contracts are
Right.
based on work performed and then reimbursed.
So have they now, are they now spending that a level?
Yes, they are. And I just want to highlight that the executive's commitment to that amount is for 3 organizations as it
Right.
started. So I appreciate the work that the Montgomery County Black Collective is doing, but for that amount, it's not just one. Correct. They are on target to spend most of what was appropriated in fiscal 24, which is why the executive is again recommending this in fiscal 25.
Okay, thank you. And then just the other, I see that Nonprofit Village has come out and the allocation of that amount to other entities. Can you just talk briefly about the addition to Ready?
Sure. So we put down the organization we're actually supporting, which is the Rockville Economic Development Inc., but that is for the Maryland's Women's Business Center. That is the local match. And as noted in the packet, the reality is when the Department of Economic Development was privatized, and that was a while ago, but for some reason there has been it came to my attention or our attention that there was part of the local match that was going through the Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation, which seems inappropriate. And so this is to align the county's commitment to the Maryland Women's Business Center.
That makes sense. And the Women's Business Center is fabulous. And I know that they're a fantastic resource for the community, but I'm sure for your staff as well. So, okay, thank you.
Along with those questions, have you or have we done any work with the local chambers? Like investing in it? I'm thinking, the ones that the Greater Silver Spring one, the Hispanic Chamber, the Olney, the Wheaton, Kensington, and so like the really tiny ones. They're doing work that I believe is pretty impactful. How are we financially supporting them? We're not. I know the answer.
So, go ahead.
No, I appreciate it. It's an excellent question, Councilmember Chair Fanny Gonzalez. We are in regular contact with many of the geographic chambers. We also have lots of contact with ethnic chambers as well. I don't know if you will be there for the CEC discussion with the I believe it's the GO committee next week, where we'll be talking about our interactions with chambers on local placemaking efforts, Germantown, Rockville Economic Development Incorporated, and our efforts in Long Branch, where we're working with business leagues. But yeah, that regular interaction is baked in. As far as financial assistance and collaboration, that's something we can definitely explore with them, talk to them about, because as with the Germantown example, if there are focus efforts to assist businesses in a particular geography, we'd like to be partners with them. And we have vehicles on the CEC side that can help provide funds for that.
I think we need to start talking about that because they're really vital. Councilmember Sells.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Jean and Ken. I was so excited to hear about this initiative when the county executive first launched your office, being an alternative to the chambers for our small businesses, because our small businesses have such trouble and financial barriers to accessing our chambers. So glad to see that you're continuing to make inroads with some of our local businesses, and it looks like the year's off to a great start, and you may be exceeding the numbers from the last year, so that's great to see. Already seeing over 300 businesses in the first quarter is incredible. Just wanted to better understand one of the resources we requested last year. I don't know if it was going to be a directory. I think you mentioned a CRM, but is there going to be a directory of all the businesses? Because we do have some of our chambers who do have directories, and people put ads to further, pay for the marketing efforts of those businesses. So just wanted to see what the status is.
Sure. So the client relationship management system will house the businesses that the county interacts with through the county's business center or the regional service centers, and then any other office or department that chooses to join the program, so to speak. And we certainly will be able to use that information to contact our businesses that we've had like some relationship with. One of the decisions we made up front was not to purchase data, to front load the database so that we weren't cleaning it up later, realizing a lot of it was inaccurate. So I think over time we will have what we could call a directory, although you notice I'm pausing because I'm hesitant to want to call it that. Because one, I think it will be challenging given the fact that the county doesn't have a central place that all businesses need to register and have a license just to do business in the county, to be able to be sure that we have an accurate list. And so the client relationship management system for our team and for the regional teams will be based on the people that we know exist, the businesses we know we've touched through our contacts. And again, I think that will fill out over the years, but it'll take some time.
It would be helpful to even see that data in contrast to the people who are actually filing taxes. The comptroller collects this information. I'm sure they can, send a report over with all the businesses here in Montgomery County under that meet the designation of a small business, and just see how close we're getting to making contact with those businesses. So let me know if we can be helpful. And then I wanted to find out about this disparity study. Is there an action plan for how your office will utilize the recommendations that are forthcoming in this disparity study? And does the executive have any updates on the status and delivery of this study?
I believe you're referring to the one that the Office of the County Attorney is currently managing. So I do not have any more data of where that's at right now. But certainly once we see the study, we will be working with the county executive, because he will be implementing that recommendation not only through the Office of Procurement but through all of our departments. So much like you are waiting to see the information.
Yes, eagerly awaiting, and many of our businesses who submitted their feedback to the additional requests for feedback are also eager to await the results of that study. We asked about the relationships with the chambers. Do you envision the county's Economic Development Corporation any relationships or opportunities coming about through the business center?
So the Business Center works closely with Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation along the lines of the no wrong door policy. So as we shared last year, MCDC is primarily focused on our strategic industries. And so if a business comes to us, say interested in the incubator as a life science business, but it's not a great fit for the county as an incubator tenant, or even regardless, we still share that information with our colleagues at MCDC so that they can bring their resources to bear for that. And likewise, if a business is in a retail, restaurant, or service oriented, Bill and his team, or Mr. Tompkins and his team, forward those requests to us so that we can pick them up, especially if they're having issues navigating the county government. So we work closely with them daily to make sure that businesses aren't lost in the shuffle.
All right. Thank you so much. I yield.
Perfect. I hear from the committee, or my sense from the committee is that we agree with the county executive's recommendations, including adding 2 new business liaison positions into the list. Is that in agreement? Okay, with that, yes, sir.
I'm sorry. Then there is one additional FTE in the business center for the program support of the CRM. So
Yeah. Do you guys want to do 3? The 3 ones? Okay. Let's just put them on the list.
Apologies. I just wanted to be clear from our end.
Sounds good. I'm thinking 2, but hey, 3. Let's do it. Thank you so much for your time, and have a good day. Now, our last item for the agenda, and thank you so much for your patience. The BioHub, Maryland, very exciting. So if they can please come up. And if we can please have staff to please kick us off while they're having their seat.
Okay, so this is a brand-new project. It's a $562,000 proposal for a recommendation for this year, but it would be an ongoing 5-year commitment based on the details that we have so far. The BioHub Maryland is an initiative of the Maryland Tech Council, and it's received support from the state level, or from the state rather. Basically, what BioHub would do is establish a training facility, and they would be the exclusive providers of NIBRT training, which they can speak to much better than I can. But I think the idea is that it's sort of cutting-edge workforce training that they now have access to, and it would obviously support establishing a stronger workforce and more people to be trained. They need a facility, which is essentially what this project is. They are looking to locate Montgomery County. Makes sense from the perspective or the fact that we have a huge asset in life sciences here, and so they're looking to establish it here. And I think they have a temporary program right now at the universities of Shady Grove. Obviously, the merits of the program they can speak to, and it's for the committee's consideration from a budget perspective. As I mentioned, it's an ongoing expense for 5 years. And so there's obviously the question of, is there an understanding that that funding would cease after 5 years? Will they transition to self-sufficiency or funding from other sources? Right now, the proposal, as you can see in Table 1 on page 3, says that the requested funding would support rent and administrative and custodial expenses specifically. And so I think there's just some very basic questions about, how prepared are they to spend that money today? Has the space been identified? And of course, if there is some lag or delay in sort of establishing some of these or beginning on some of these components of their proposal, there may be an opportunity to delay some of the funding as those details become clearer. And I think it's also just important to understand whether there is overlap with existing programs at MC and USG. Clearly, they don't provide the same NIBRT training, but they may have their own, so making sure that tax dollars that are supporting those programs are being efficiently used across all the training programs that the county supports. Yeah, basically the questions are, what details exist that sort of justify the dollars that are being requested today? Can they be programmed in FY25? Is there any overlap with existing programs? And if the committee feels comfortable, staff does recommend that this project be placed on the new and enhanced programs list.
Thank you so much for that summary. It's always very exciting to see any program dealing with life sciences in Montgomery County. It's great because we do want to be #1 in the nation. So I'm going to ask the county executives team, would you like to start, Mr. Hartman?
Thank you so much, Chair Fanning Gonzalez. In a minute, I'll turn it over to our very capable Ms. Judy Costello, who can go into some of the details. But the county, I just wanted to convey to the committee, the county executive is very enthusiastic about the partnership with the Maryland Tech Council on the BioHub Montgomery project. This project will provide much needed additional workforce development capability into our ecosystem, which, as council staff pointed out, includes USG, Montgomery College, even the Institute for Health Computing, which is a source of talented people to supply to our industry, our growing industry in the life sciences in Montgomery County. Again, we're excited for this opportunity. We hope you feel the same way. I'll turn it to Ms. Costello, who can go into the nuts and bolts of the proposal and answer any questions you have. And also want to welcome representatives of the Maryland Tech Council who are here today to talk about this proposal.
Thank you. Hello, Madam Chair and council members. Good to see you again. And I will let the CEO and COO of Maryland Tech Council get into the nuts and bolts in a second, and we appreciate their presence here, and thank you for your patience getting to see our democracy in action here at the earlier hearings today. So as has already been said, the county executive supports this proposal as a critical opportunity to provide training that is needed to help fill the many job openings in our strong #3 biohealth life sciences technology cluster. And as I'm sure they'll share with you in a minute, and as we spoke about, I think even last week at the ECON, at this hearing, the many jobs that exist are not all PhD jobs, and they are not all 2-year or 4-year degree programs. We are very supportive of the life sciences training that takes place at the universities of Shady Grove and of the great work that's been done for a number of years with CGMP training at Montgomery College under Collins Jones. And the county executive has agreed to support this proposal as a complement to those activities in terms of curriculum and as of something that can be turned. And I know I heard specific stories referenced yesterday by Ms. Schultz about high school students and their ability to get a job through this training. So the proposal that exists, because the Maryland Technology Council, we understand, serves members throughout Maryland, but what's exciting about this is that with our support, they have agreed to launch their first node and a major node, probably the major node, their home here in Montgomery County in a branded BioHub education and training facility at Montgomery County here that you'll hear about in a second. They understand that our commitment is to support Montgomery County residents as trainees and or as employers. We recognize that there may be some other students or employers participating in our node, but they've agreed that the majority of the trainees and or employers will be here in Montgomery County. This need is something that industry has repeatedly contacted the county executive, and I'm sure many of you, and said is a need, and the Maryland Technology Council is uniquely positioned because of their work representing industry and also with the Maryland Department of Commerce, the Life Science States Life Science Advisory Board, and others, getting feedback and input from the industry into the training needs. And we've seen them move forward from this BioHub being a concept and an idea just a couple years ago. So as you'll hear in a second, you can go online and see information about career paths and other opportunities. So I think those are the major issues. And if you are okay, I'd like to introduce Ms. Schultz, but you may.
Before you introduce her, I am so happy to see you here. I was at the University of Shady Grove the other day for that big event that we had where you were part of the panel. And then after you left, the second panel was about workforce and the needs that we will have in the future and making sure that we're filling those gaps. And it goes alongside the same things that you mentioned. It's not just PhDs. We're looking for people with, vocational careers in tech to take those jobs. And those are really good paying jobs too. So I loved it, and I am so happy and honored to see you in this room today. I've been following you for a long time, and I think you're fabulous, so I had to say that. So go ahead.
Madam Chair, I will say that you are also fabulous, and it's great, to be here amongst the entire committee to talk about this. I just want to set a perspective because I will say I do understand the concept of wanting to have an all-inclusive type of a system. I've been working on that type of a concept since I was a Secretary of Labor. We don't need duplicative services. We need complementary services. And I said to somebody a few weeks ago, I wouldn't have come to the Maryland Tech Council a year and a half ago and brought and continued to foster this program of BioHub Maryland for this entry-level training if I in any way, shape, or form thought that it was spinning the wheels, that it wasn't going to make a difference. It will make a difference. And I just want to recite just a couple of data points for you all. This is about data. Maryland Life Sciences employment grew significantly slower than projections based on growth rates because of historic growth rates. For the 5-year period between 2018 and 2022, there was $500 million in income lost to unemployment that was happening within the industry, unable to fill those jobs, which related to a GDP loss of $1.3 billion. Right? So the loss of not having people fill the positions, and a lot of them are the entry-level positions that we're talking about, that's causing a loss for the businesses, but it's also causing a revenue loss for local, state, and federal government, let's be honest, right? So this is a complementary for that. And the idea of us coming to Montgomery County to help to support the system here is because Montgomery County is the vast majority of the businesses within Maryland that are going to need this type of support. And I just want, you might recognize some of the names of the folks that are on our workforce coalition. AstraZeneca, GSK, Novavax, REGENXBio, MaxCyte, Macrogenics, Emergent, Kite Pharma, WorkSource Montgomery, Platoon 22, and Revel Grounds, which are 2 veteran organizations in the state that want to do military to civilian training. We believe wholeheartedly that we've had conversations with Montgomery College, we've had conversations with USG, and we have all come to the understanding that our ability to train faster with, hate to say it, but less bureaucracy around cohorts, with a globally recognized curriculum from Ireland that is being used right now as an attraction tool to lure companies into Maryland, because we purchased this curriculum exclusively for Maryland, DC, and Virginia to give us the leg up on what it would mean to attract future businesses here. So there's multiple pieces when we talk about workforce development and economic development, and they always have to go together, which is why I'm sure this is before your committee of the Economic Development Committee. And I'm happy to answer specific questions that you may have. And of course, Michelle Ferrone, our Chief Operating Officer, has been with the Maryland Tech Council for 28 years. And this has been her baby since the last 5 or 6 years now. And we're excited to hopefully bring this to fruition right here in Montgomery County. So thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. Would you like to answer especially some of the questions that the staff asked? That would be great if you can answer any of that.
Sure. Which question did you want me to answer first?
Sure. I guess just some of the questions about how crystallized some of the proposals are in terms of, has a space been identified? Are you ready to move in? What's the plan to operationalize this project within the fiscal year and spend the money that's being requested?
So we're ready.
Actually, it's on.
Oh, I'm sorry. So we're ready. This is the last piece to our puzzle. We have identified a few spaces that we're looking at, some between 8,000 and 9,000 square feet. It's going to be used for, for the 5 years. And we're ready to go once we have the okay for the funding. We've already purchased the curriculum. We have the trainer. We have over 2,000 people that have expressed interest through the last 2 years to want to be part of this program, whether it's the veterans, whether it's people just from our social media that have seen our presentations and they're like, yes, this is for me. So, again, there's a lot of space out there. There's some really great space out there, and that's almost ready and movable. We probably could start, after funding, we probably could start right away training in September.
Thank you. I'm going to open it up for questions. We're going to start with Councilman Blocken.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. It's a very exciting project. It's exactly what we need. And to your point, Ms. Schultz, about the loss, the loss in tax revenue and GDP by not having workers that can fit these positions. And so I think that it's fantastic and appreciate you coming to Montgomery County with it. So appreciate that. I do have questions about, you have a couple spaces in mind. You need to wait for the funding to sign the deal. The question might be for Ms. Costello or Mr. Hartman-Espada. The funding does the lease have to be signed before the funding is let? What the cart before the horse kind of thing?
So no, the lease does not have to be signed, but before the funding is dispersed, I think Mr. Ali referenced it in the packet, we would sign a memorandum of understanding that has milestone requirements, including not only the signing and occupancy of a lease, but a certain percentage of the employers and the residents being from Montgomery County, the branding and everything. We did not sign that agreement because we're waiting for your decision and your input on the funding. Does that?
Yep, that's exactly right. I just
And
did.
Madam Councilwoman, if I may, Michelle did say that we have a couple of properties that have been identified. I will say what's holding us back, and me back specifically as the CEO and responsible, I have to sign a 5-year lease, right? In the commercial space, that's, the common practice to do that. And we can front up that money, so we don't need to have a check in our account. We have a little bit of funds to be able to work with to get up and running and started. But I want to have the partnership secure between us and the county so that we know that for 5 years, this is our home and this is how we're going to operate.
Of course, and I appreciate that.
Sure.
So the relationship with Montgomery College and USG, will there be a formal relationship with identifying potential participants? How is that going to work in terms of soliciting or just your outreach for that?
Yeah, so I would say with USG, we already have a very nice relationship with them as far as the understanding if we need additional lab space. They have some lab space that we could utilize with a cohort if we don't open up in September. We have a cohort through WorkSource Montgomery that we're going to possibly do through USG, right? So there's that partnership. I'm also very fortunate to sit as one of the advisors to USG, so I'm very understanding of how that important partnership would work. And I would say with Montgomery College, I think that we've had a series of conversations recently, and I think perhaps some misunderstandings of how they thought that we would be working with the students. The NIBRT curriculum right now is not a credentialed or a credited course that we would be teaching, right? So always the understanding of a continued ongoing lifelong educational format that once you get somebody into a skilled position inside of the industry that is really important to them, that there's always that advancement for additional education and training, whether it be at the college or a 4-year university somewhere.
And then the relationship with potential employers.
Yeah, so that's going to be the revenue part of it, right? I mean, so we understand that you guys don't want to fund us. Well, you might want to fund us for the eternity of the project, but be partners. But I suspect possibly not. One of the questions that I noticed coming from staff was, is there going to be revenues that they're looking forward to the actual training portion of it? And I would say yes. So the workforce partners that I mentioned, some of them on that list are expanding right now. Instead of doing their own internal workforce training programs, they are looking to us. This is a program that they requested to us to have, and it would be a paid opportunity for us to receive revenues that way. We've also applied for Earn Maryland grants, which really track then the student as to the type of training that student wants and where they can go to use their education dollars into specific programs. I mentioned WorkSource Montgomery, which would be additionally, that's the federal dollars that follow through the WIOA funding program for the students to look at training or to retrain or to upskill in an area where they might be.
Great, super. And then the only other thing is the outreach. We talk about it all the time. Montgomery County has so many fabulous, wonderful resources in the county, but not everybody knows about the resources. And so I just will encourage you to make sure that your outreach strategy, your marketing strategy is comprehensive for the entire county. And if you, once you start seeding your cohorts, to really look at your demographics as to who's missing. I think that's really important. So thank you, and I'm thrilled.
Thank you, and that's important to our mission as well.
Thank you. Councilmember Sales.
Thank you, everyone. I'm so excited about this initiative, and I'm glad to see Ms. Schultz at the helm. And having Judy, Ms. Costello here, I'm just really excited about this initiative. We've been known to be the biotech corridor of the region, and so I'm glad to see we will now have a home for training the next generation of change makers and innovators in this space. And so just wanted to learn more about the, I guess, the startup. I know that you have a trainer in place. I don't know how many people this trainer can train at once, but it would be helpful to know what, given the demand and the significant revenue losses we are seeing, how quickly do you think we can ramp up for FY25 and be underway?
That's a great question. So just quickly about NIBRT, they are in Ireland, and the reason their curriculum is so appetizing to the private sector is because it is, as Kelly said, it's very customizable. It's quick. It could be as easy as, a few day classes, a few weeks, or a few months, but it's very nimble, and it's quick, and it's getting people into these jobs. So we have for one trainer, and that's what we're working on now. He just got back from Ireland, and he was trained over there for 2 weeks. So they did the train the trainer, and he's ready to start training these people, these students coming up as soon as possible. We're working on how many he can do by himself, but we're looking at that we could by, the first year, second year, we're looking at, a couple hundred students, Now, NIBRT trains over, a year, 30,000 students. Wow. They have a 250 or 25,000 square foot facility. It's humongous, but, our goal really is with Josh in hiring future trainers within the next year or so, that we probably could double those numbers.
Awesome. Okay. Oh, that's exciting. Okay. And then the facility, depending on the location, it's in Montgomery County. How will we prioritize Montgomery County residents for this program?
Well, I would say the prioritization is just basic logistics at this point in time. We have had, people reach out to us about, putting something in Baltimore, some conversation about putting something in Frederick, which are, kind of the 1, 2, 3 jurisdictional areas when it comes to biotech manufacturing anyway. And it really has to be Montgomery County because the industry is here, right? And if we're looking at individuals that possibly only have a high school diploma, it will be the local generalized area in order to be able to tap into the local community. And that's how we feel about it. We've done a ton, like Michelle said, a ton of social media. We've done outreach with local schools. We've done outreach with some of the local organizations and the chambers of commerce. So getting that message out for people to actually apply. We have a long list of right now, to go through some applications, but for risk of saying only Montgomery County residents can apply, I have a sneaky suspicion that it will be mostly Montgomery County residents at this point in time.
Okay. And I know, thank you for that. I know you have a relationship with USG. Are you also building relationships with Montgomery College and MCPS as well to ensure we have?
Yeah, we are. We had a great meeting with Montgomery College just a couple weeks ago, and really kind of for the first time talked about their specific programs that they have in manufacturing, what we have with manufacturing and some of those skills. And I think we really came to the understanding that they're kind of a step up, right? They're a little bit further beyond the type of approach that we have for that entry level. For those businesses, we could certainly do some upskilling with different cohorts that we have that one of our industry partners might have, and there might be some overlap. But I would say for the general, this was a gap that the people on our list in our coalition, they came to us and said, this is a gap that we don't have anywhere in Maryland, not just in Montgomery County, right? And so they knew the resources that were available to them, and they said, this is what we don't have. Can you guys fill that space? And so that's where we are.
Thank you. Well, I will be supporting this and hope in 5 years that it will be self-sustaining, as I'm sure it will. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Councilmember Bass.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you all for the thoughtful conversation. I mean, the bottom line here is talent is key, and we need to increase the pipeline and find and teach more people so that we can grow from the third largest BioHub to the second and to the first. And it takes that ecosystem. And so I recognize it is regional in its scope, which is why it is the idea has come from the Tech Council, the Maryland Tech Council. Question I have, just picking up some of the themes as well, I think the partnerships that have already been established are great. Can you speak a little bit more about the Frederick connection and Hood College, and is it going to bounce back and forth, or are they two separate thoughts?
They're two separate things. So as a disclaimer, I'm also an advisor at Hood College, right? And I'm an alumni of Hood College. So, they're a great organization. Hood College stepped up during COVID when Kite came in and they needed to hire a lot of people for their manufacturing plant. So Hood offered to them their labs, which were then empty because everybody was hybriding. And so that was a great opportunity that they had. We work very closely with Hood. Our office is right down the street from them in Frederick. But as far as this entry-level skilled training part of it, I don't really foresee Hood being an immediate hub for that right now in Frederick. But it could be in the future. I would say the advancement of another node within the next couple of years would quite possibly be Baltimore, solely because the Baltimore Tech Hub proposal that has gone into the federal EDA, they have looked at us as the BioHub training program as an answer to their workforce initiative that they entered in for that. That could be several years down the road. It could be in 2 years if there's funding, but our main focus right now would be Montgomery.
I appreciate that. And clearly success begets requests for more, right? And so if this proves to be successful, you'll be attending councils throughout the state.
We have to be successful here first.
There you go. I love that enthusiasm. A budgetary question. The budget that is before us is for a little more than $500,000 in this fiscal year. But if I understand it correctly, it's being supported also by the Tech Council's budget. Can you talk about what the organization's budget will be, how it will be supporting our outlay?
I'll just start this conversation. Michelle can go into some of the numbers that we have, but we did receive some additional funding from the state through the state's budget this year. We received a $500,000 capital investment and also a $500,000 operational out of the budget. So we're very pleased with the governor, his administration, and the legislators for looking at this.
And that's for the
program
Tech Council, not this particular program.
This is for BioHub.
Oh, that's great.
The Maryland Tech Council itself receives no funding other than our memberships, our dues, our sponsorships, and all of that kind of stuff. The BioHub is really the major recipient of the grants at the state and local level.
And just a technical question, was it a grant or was it a bond bill, or do you know?
Well,
who we have to thank, so, yeah.
We have a list, actually.
There we go. Well, you can share that offline.
Right.
Thank you.
I believe a couple of those members may reside in Montgomery County, however, though, so we'll make sure that it's in
Awesome.
there.
Thank you. Yeah, and so just the interplay and how the Tech Council is going to support this $562,000.
Yeah, so as Kelly said, the Maryland Tech Council, it's a membership organization, and we receive the core revenues through our membership and through our other programs and sponsorships and events. Really, this BioHub is an initiative of the Maryland Tech Council, so it's an arm of that, and really we're going to be, through our accounting and CFO, we're going to be supporting the BioHub through its operational costs. So it's Maryland Tech Council will be a pass-through for all the
the costs.
Thank you. It was all put in the same line items, which is helpful to know that the $550,000 investment is supported by nearly $4 million organization, right? So the backing is there, and that's why I wanted to highlight this. So thank you. I support this. I'm excited about it, but I just want to take a moment and talk to the executive team because what we're talking about today is part of the larger picture regarding economic development and growing our life sciences sector. We had a conversation last week about it, and at that conversation, I said we did not have enough time to talk about all the proposals that were being made. There's going to be a joint committee next week talking about it, and I know the conversation is going to continue. What I think would be very helpful in the time remaining for this budget deliberation is some document from the executive team as to the new programs that you're doing, an org chart, if you will, because there's $7.5 million for an investment fund. There is $500,000 for what I will say investing in the career pipeline. There are a number of other projects and proposals, and that's just on the executive side. There's $20 million worth here. And then there's other things that are in the budget. Having everything in one place so that we can see what your vision is, what our options are, and how we make them all make sense within the budget constraints that we have. Is that something that you all can turn around?
Absolutely. We have it organized that way. We've provided it. Let's take another look at it, group it into the buckets, because we have workforce, we've got incubation, entrepreneurship, and we've got the grants, and also the business center that we just talked about. So we'll lay it all out, make it short.
Because even, thank you, and yes, because in advance of the question, I looked up on the online budget, and I typed up economic development, and none of it came up, right? You have to go to the NDAs to get to this and to get to the previous conversation, and so trying to link them all up so that we, again, know what our options are, know what your vision is going to be incredibly helpful. Great, thank you. I yield back, thank you.
Mr. Hartman and I have had conversations about Monday, that joint session, and this is part of it, of that conversation. So I'm very grateful to Councilmember Glass to raising it, but that's the expectation, to say this is what we're doing this year, and this is why we're making these investments on life science. With that, I think this committee strongly supports this program, and we're going to put it on the list as a strong recommendation because it's one of those key investments that we need to move forward, and we'll bring it that way when I speak in front of the council to ensure that folks vote yes. We need 6 votes. With that, thank you so much for your time, and this committee is finally adjourned. Bye.
Yes. Yeah, saving best for last.